The chandeliers glittered. The orchestra swelled. World leaders raised crystal glasses beneath centuries of tradition. But at precisely 9:17 p.m., Princess Anne stood up and everything stopped. No toast. No explanation. Just a single command that froze the room: end this dinner. Now. What she had discovered moments earlier inside a palace aide's private office would shake the monarchy to its core and expose a truth no one was prepared for. It was a night designed to radiate stability. Beneath the vaulted ceilings of royal tradition, diplomats from across the world gathered in ceremonial harmony, their presence a living testament to alliances forged over generations. Each course served was steeped in symbolism, each carefully chosen word a thread in the delicate tapestry of international diplomacy. Laughter drifted softly between polished silver and crystal glassware, but beneath the refined elegance, the evening carried an unspoken weight, the expectation that the monarchy, steadfast and unyielding, would remain the silent guardian of continuity. At the heart of this grandeur sat Princess Anne, the embodiment of discipline and duty. Known for her unwavering resolve and tireless commitment to the crown, she was not a figure prone to theatrics or impulsive displays. Her reputation had been carved through decades of service, measured, precise, and unflinching. Yet those who watched her closely that evening sensed a subtle shift. Her composure remained intact, but her gaze wandered, sharp and distant, as if tracing invisible threads no one else could see. There was a quiet intensity in her posture, a tension concealed beneath the ritual grace of royal protocol. Whispers flickered through the room like shadows beneath candlelight. A discreet exchange between aides, a folded note delivered with unusual urgency. Princess Anne's eyes lingered on the message for a fraction too long before she rose without ceremony. Her departure was brief, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye, yet it sent a ripple through the inner circle of palace staff. This was not routine. This was not expected. Something had disrupted the choreography of tradition. Beyond the warmth of the banquet hall, the palace corridors stretched into solemn silence. Footsteps echoed against marble floors as she moved with purposeful urgency, guided not by hesitation, but by instinct honed over a lifetime within the monarchy's inner machinery. Each step carried the weight of responsibility, each passing moment tightening an unseen thread of foreboding. The grandeur of the palace seemed to retreat into shadow, its gilded history offering no comfort against the unknown awaiting her. Moments later, she returned. The transformation was unmistakable. Her face, usually composed with regal assurance, bore the pallor of revelation. Her jaw was set with quiet, controlled fury, and her presence carried a gravity that silenced even the orchestra's final notes. Conversations faltered. Glasses hovered midair. Diplomats exchanged uncertain glances as an invisible tension swept across the room like a sudden storm. The machinery of ceremony faltered under the weight of something far more profound than protocol. Then came the command firm, unyielding and impossible to ignore. End this dinner. Now, the words landed with the force of history shifting beneath its own foundations. Staff moved swiftly, their efficiency masking confusion. Guests rose in polite bewilderment, whispers rising like distant thunder. Yet within the palace walls, those closest to the crown understood the magnitude of what had just occurred. Princess Anne had halted a state dinner, an act unprecedented, unthinkable, and laden with consequence. Whatever lay inside that private office was not merely scandal. It was betrayal. And as the echoes of that command lingered beneath the glittering chandeliers, the illusion of certainty began to fracture. To understand why Princess Anne made that extraordinary decision, we must step back and uncover how a routine evening spiraled into a royal reckoning. Every palace has restricted corridors. Every institution has secrets. But inside Buckingham Palace, there was one door staff passed every day, a private office belonging to a trusted aide. No one knocked. No one asked questions. Until Princess Anne did. And when that door finally opened, it revealed something that had been hiding in plain sight for years. In the intricate machinery of the monarchy, loyalty is not merely expected, it is assumed. The aide at the center of this quiet storm had served the crown for decades, a figure so dependable that his presence faded into the background of royal life. He moved through private offices and confidential meetings with the ease of a man who belonged there, entrusted with delicate correspondence, sensitive schedules, and the unseen threads that held tradition together. To question him would have seemed unthinkable. He was not merely an employee, he was an institution within the institution, a silent custodian of royal continuity. Yet even within the most trusted circles, shadows have a way of forming. Over recent months, Princess Anne had begun to notice subtle irregularities, nothing overt, nothing dramatic, but enough to stir the instincts of a woman shaped by decades of duty. A minor scheduling discrepancy here, an unexplained delay there, private engagements appearing on documents before they had been formally confirmed. Each anomaly, on its own, was easily dismissed. Together, they formed a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Anne's mind, disciplined and precise, catalogued each inconsistency, her unease deepening with every passing week. The turning point came quietly, without spectacle. A misfiled document surfaced among routine correspondence, its contents misaligned with official records. It was a small error, the kind easily overlooked by less vigilant eyes. But Princess Anne was not less vigilant. Her gaze lingered on the document, tracing its implications with the calm intensity of someone who understood the stakes. The information it contained had no legitimate reason to exist outside restricted channels. And yet, there it was, misplaced, exposed, and impossible to dismiss. Her instincts, honed through a lifetime within the monarchy's inner sanctum, stirred with unmistakable clarity. Something was wrong. Not carelessness, not coincidence. Something deliberate. Without ceremony, without announcement, she followed that instinct through corridors few dared question, toward a door that had long been accepted as untouchable. It stood as it always had, unremarkable, discreet, and unquestioned, a symbol of trust, a symbol of routine. Until that night, when Princess Anne reached for the handle and shattered the illusion of certainty. Inside, order reigned with unsettling precision. The office was immaculate, every document aligned, every surface undisturbed. At first glance, it revealed nothing. But beneath that careful fade lay another layer, concealed behind locked drawers and a secondary cabinet hidden from casual view. The discovery of its contents was neither chaotic nor accidental. It was methodical, deliberate, and chilling in its clarity. Encrypted folders, unauthorized communications, and coded exchanges surfaced one by one, each revelation tightening the grip of suspicion. These were not clerical errors or harmless oversights. They were records of access and intent, fragments of conversations never meant to be seen. As Princess Anne absorbed the implications, the emotional weight of betrayal settled upon her with quiet finality. This was not incompetence. It was not negligence. It was deliberate, a calculated intrusion into the private rhythm of the crown itself. The trust placed in a loyal servant had been weaponized, transformed into a gateway through which secrets flowed beyond the palace walls. In that moment, the monarchy's serene fade fractured, revealing a vulnerability no one had dared imagine. The revelation did not arrive with chaos or confrontation. It came with a chilling certainty, a realization that what she held in her hands extended far beyond a single office or a solitary aide. The documents whispered of coordination, of intentions that reached into places unseen, of a truth too dangerous to ignore. And as the gravity of that discovery settled into silence, Princess Anne understood that the door she had opened would not easily be closed. Yet what Princess Anne uncovered inside that office was more than suspicious paperwork. It pointed toward a web far more dangerous than a single aide's betrayal. At first glance, they looked like ordinary briefing files. But as Princess Anne turned each page, a chilling pattern emerged: private royal schedules mapped out alongside external contacts, confidential conversations summarized in chilling detail. These were not mistakes, they were leaks. Someone inside the palace had been feeding information outward. And the implications weren't just embarrassing, they were destabilizing. The deeper she read, the more the illusion of routine disintegrated. Duplicated itineraries surfaced first, precise replicas of confidential royal schedules marked with coded annotations that no official record should have contained. These were not careless copies. They were deliberate, structured, and calculated, each symbol hinting at timing, access, and intent. Private engagements, once thought secure within the guarded rhythm of the crown, appeared mapped and deciphered as though they were commodities. Princess Anne's pulse steadied. her mind sharpening with quiet resolve as she traced the pattern unfolding before her. Then came the financial records. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible, they revealed unexplained deposits routed through shell organizations with names designed to evade scrutiny. Each transaction was discreet, layered, and carefully disguised, yet together they formed a trail that could not be dismissed as coincidence. The sums were neither ostentatious nor trivial, calculated enough to avoid suspicion, substantial enough to command allegiance. It was a silent currency of influence, moving beneath the surface of royal tradition, whispering of motives far more insidious than ambition alone. Encrypted communications followed, their coded language repeating the names of foreign contacts with unsettling regularity. Messages exchanged in deliberate fragments spoke of meetings arranged before announcements were made public, of strategies anticipated before they were formally declared. These were not harmless correspondences, they were windows into the monarchy's most guarded conversations, shared with unknown recipients beyond palace walls. With each revelation, the implications widened, rippling outward into the fragile equilibrium of diplomacy and trust. Mentions of sensitive diplomatic discussions surfaced, next dialogues recorded before they had been sanctioned, decisions outlined before they had reached the world stage. The realization struck with chilling clarity: this was not merely an internal breach, it was a threat to national security, a fracture capable of undermining alliances and destabilizing the delicate balance upon which the monarchy's influence depended. Princess Anne felt the weight of that understanding settle upon her with solemn gravity. This was no longer a matter of loyalty alone. It was a matter of sovereignty. Betrayal cut deepest not in its scale, but in its intimacy. The information had flowed from within the monarchy's private rhythm, entrusted to someone who had stood in its shadow for years. Each document, each coded message, felt like an echo of confidence misplaced, a reminder that trust, once fractured, leaves a silence far heavier than suspicion. For Princess Anne, whose life had been defined by duty and unwavering devotion to the crown, the discovery was not merely shocking, it was personal. And yet, within that moment of reckoning, doubt crept in, not of the evidence, but of the path ahead. To expose the truth risked scandal, destabilization, and public unrest. To conceal it meant safeguarding the institution, while allowing the rot to fester in silence. The choice loomed before her, stark and unforgiving, demanding not only discretion but courage. She understood the gravity of both silence and revelation, the cost each would exact from the monarchy she had sworn to protect. As her gaze settled upon a final concealed folder, the atmosphere shifted once more. Its contents were sparse yet devastating fragments of correspondence, subtle references, and coded acknowledgments that hinted at coordination beyond a single office. The Aide, it seemed, had not acted alone. The betrayal was not isolated, it was orchestrated. And with that realization, the boundaries of the scandal expanded into something far more dangerous, a web woven with precision and secrecy. The truth now lay undeniable in her hands, heavy with consequence and impossible to ignore. The monarchy's vulnerability had been exposed, its trust exploited, its sanctity challenged from within. And as the reality sank in, Princess Anne faced a choice that would test not only her loyalty, but her courage. The state dinner was more than ceremony, it was strategy. Ending it abruptly risked diplomatic fallout, but allowing it to continue meant pretending nothing was wrong. Princess Anne stood at the crossroads of optics and integrity, and in that split second, she chose something far more dangerous than embarrassment. She chose truth. The weight of that decision pressed heavily upon her, not as a fleeting impulse but as a reckoning shaped by decades of service. The monarchy had endured wars, scandals, and shifting tides of public opinion, surviving not through spectacle but through unwavering resolve. Yet what she now held in her knowledge threatened something deeper, a breach from within, silent and calculated. To ignore it, even for a single night, would be to gamble with the very stability she had sworn to protect. And so, as tradition unfolded around her, Princess Anne wrestled with an internal battle few could comprehend, preserve the illusion of calm, or confront the storm before it could spread. Her advisors, ever vigilant, urged restraint. Voices of caution whispered with measured urgency. Wait until morning, assess the evidence, avoid unnecessary alarm. Their reasoning was sound, rooted in diplomacy and discretion. A state dinner was not merely an event, It was a symbol of continuity, a delicate performance upon which international relationships depended. To halt it without explanation risked embarrassment, confusion, and speculation across global headlines. But Princess Anne understood something: they could not delay would not contain the threat. Delay would embolden it. The symbolic weight of halting centuries of tradition mid-course settled upon her shoulders with solemn gravity. Royal protocol had endured as an unbroken chain of ritual and order, a silent promise of stability in an unpredictable world. To disrupt it was unthinkable. Yet the evidence she had uncovered demanded action, not hesitation. In that moment, the preservation of ceremony became secondary to the preservation of the institution itself. She was not acting against tradition, she was defending it from erosion. Beneath her composed exterior, controlled fury simmered. Her posture remained impeccable, her voice measured, yet those closest to her sensed the shift. There was steel in her silence, a quiet authority that allowed no room for doubt. This was not panic. This was resolve. The gravity of her decision radiated through her presence, communicating what words could not. Something profound and perilous had unfolded within the palace walls. Senior staff exchanged subtle glances, their understanding immediate and unspoken. No questions were asked. None were necessary. The machinery of royal protocol moved swiftly, discreetly, and with unwavering precision. Behind the fade of courtesy, instructions were issued with surgical clarity. Security personnel were alerted without fanfare. Legal advisors were summoned under the guise of routine consultation. Communications were carefully contained, each action executed with the quiet efficiency that defined the monarchy's survival. Within these measured movements lay an undercurrent of urgency. There was no chaos, no public display of alarm, yet the atmosphere carried the unmistakable tension of crisis. Princess Anne's decision had set events into motion, and every step forward carried the weight of consequence. The aide whose betrayal had shattered the illusion of trust remained unaccounted for in that moment, his silence echoing with ominous possibility. The realization formed with chilling clarity. If he sensed discovery, he might attempt to disappear, taking with him the truth the palace could not afford to lose. And so, beneath the surface of royal composure, a silent race had begun, one defined not by spectacle, but by precision, loyalty, and courage. The dinner's abrupt end was not an act of disruption but a declaration of intent, a line drawn with unwavering conviction. Princess Anne had chosen integrity over comfort, action over delay, and in doing so, she had altered the course of that night forever. But stopping the dinner was only the first move in a much larger and far more perilous confrontation. While guests were escorted out under polite confusion, Princess Anne did something extraordinary. She requested the aide be brought to her immediately. No committees, no delays, just a private meeting in a chamber steeped in royal history. What unfolded behind those closed doors was not just an interrogation, it was a reckoning. There was no spectacle in her command, only authority. The decision bypassed protocol, cutting through layers of bureaucracy with the precision of someone who understood that hesitation could be fatal to truth. The aide, long shielded by reputation and routine, was summoned without ceremony. For years he had moved within the palace as a trusted guardian of its inner workings, invisible in his reliability. Now that invisibility had evaporated, replaced by a silence heavy with consequence. He arrived composed, or at least attempting to appear so. Yet beneath the surface, the strain betrayed him. His words were polite, measured, but his confidence faltered in the presence of Princess Anne's unwavering gaze. She did not raise her voice. She did not accuse. Instead, she allowed the weight of the moment to settle, presenting the documents with deliberate calm. Each page was a quiet indictment, each coded annotation a silent witness to deception. Her restraint was not mercy, it was strategy. At first he denied everything. Clerical error, he insisted. A misunderstanding. Misplaced documents, administrative confusion, unfortunate coincidences. The language of deflection flowed easily, rehearsed and polished by years within the palace's disciplined environment. But Princess Anne did not interrupt. She allowed him to speak, her silence sharpening the tension. It was a silence that demanded honesty, one that left no refuge for evasion. Gradually, the cracks began to form. a hesitation too long, a contradiction too subtle to ignore. The rhythm of his denials faltered under the steady pressure of evidence. Each explanation unraveled against the precision of the documents before him, and the confidence that had once defined his service dissolved into uncertainty. The truth, once concealed behind layers of trust, began to emerge in fragments reluctant, fragile, and impossible to retract. Then came the admission. It was not dramatic, nor delivered with defiance, but with the weary resignation of a man cornered by inevitability. External pressure, he confessed. Coercion that began quietly, insidiously, disguised as opportunity before revealing its true nature. Financial incentives, ideological persuasion, and veiled threats had converged, drawing him into a web he could neither escape nor fully control. What began as a single compromise had grown into a pattern of compliance, each act binding him more tightly to forces beyond the palace walls. The revelation did not end there. Names surfaced in fragments, references cloaked in coded language, suggestions of others who had benefited from access to royal information. The betrayal was not isolated. It was orchestrated. A network had leveraged proximity to power, exploiting trust to manipulate the monarchy's most guarded confidences. The palace, long regarded as a symbol of stability, had become vulnerable to infiltration from within. Princess Anne listened without interruption, her composure unbroken even as the magnitude of the confession settled heavily upon her. This was no longer a matter of personal treachery. It was a threat capable of igniting constitutional crisis, of shaking public trust and destabilizing the delicate balance between tradition and modern governance. Exposure could ignite scandal. Silence could invite further corrosion. The stakes were not merely reputational, they were existential. In that moment, the gravity of her earlier decision became unmistakably clear. Ending the state dinner had not been an act of disruption, but the opening move in a calculated confrontation with betrayal itself. She had not sought spectacle, she had sought containment. And now, as the aide's words echoed with reluctant truth, the fragile illusion of security within the monarchy began to fracture beyond repair. Yet even as his confession unfolded, it hinted at shadows still unseen, threads that stretched beyond his own actions into territories darker and more complex than she had imagined. Princess Anne understood that what lay before her was only the beginning, a doorway into a deeper conspiracy that threatened the very foundations of the crown. But as the aide's story unraveled, an even darker truth began to surface, one that reached beyond a single office. It wasn't just one aide. Hidden within encrypted threads and coded exchanges was evidence of coordination, multiple insiders quietly manipulating royal information. Princess Anne had stumbled upon something systemic. The palace wasn't merely infiltrated, it was compromised. And the implications extended far beyond scandal, they threatened the very stability of the monarchy in a modern, hyper-connected world. The realization unfolded with chilling precision. As the layers of correspondence were examined, overlapping digital signatures emerged, subtle yet undeniable, linking communications across multiple sources within the palace's inner machinery. These signatures, embedded like invisible fingerprints, revealed a network operating with calculated discretion. Each fragment of data whispered the same unsettling truth: this was not the work of a solitary betrayer, but the architecture of a coordinated effort designed to exploit trust from within. Patterns began to surface where none had been noticed before. Suspicious travel arrangements appeared in staff records, journeys justified as routine yet aligning with sensitive diplomatic engagements and confidential discussions. Names that had once inspired unquestioned confidence now carried the faintest shadow of doubt. The palace, long regarded as a sanctuary of continuity, felt increasingly vulnerable, its traditions masking a vulnerability shaped not by external threat alone, but by calculated infiltration from within its own ranks. Equally troubling were the echoes in the media. Leaks that had once been dismissed as speculation or coincidence now revealed a disturbing rhythm, surfacing with uncanny timing shortly after private meetings and undisclosed deliberations. Headlines had anticipated decisions before they were formally announced, and whispers of confidential negotiations had drifted into public discourse with unsettling accuracy. What had seemed like journalistic intuition now appeared orchestrated, a deliberate erosion of the monarchy's privacy designed to destabilize confidence and control. Financial incentives cast their own long shadow. The earlier trail of unexplained deposits expanded into a network of transactions that suggested not merely bribery, but ideological persuasion influence cultivated through subtle promises, strategic rewards, and quiet pressure. This was not chaos, it was strategy. A convergence of motives, financial and ideological, working in silent harmony to manipulate the monarchy's most guarded confidences. The trail, it seemed, had been nurtured patiently, concealed beneath the polished surface of loyalty. Princess Anne's mind, disciplined by years of service and sharpened by instinct, began mapping the risks with relentless clarity. Each revelation formed a piece of a larger design, a pattern that extended beyond individual actions into something systemic and deliberate. She understood the fragility of public trust, the invisible bond between the crown and those it served. Exposure without preparation could ignite panic, erode confidence, and fracture the delicate equilibrium upon which the monarchy depended. Yet silence carried its own peril. To conceal the truth entirely risked allowing the corruption to deepen, undermining the institution from within. Transparency promised accountability but threatened scandal. Discretion preserved stability but demanded patience. The tension between these paths pressed heavily upon her, a burden shaped not by uncertainty, but by the knowledge that every decision would carry consequences measured in history rather than headlines. In response, a quiet operation was set into motion. Internal intelligence channels were activated with discreet precision, their presence masked by routine procedures and unremarkable formalities. Communications were monitored, records secured, and movements traced with unwavering care. No announcement was made, no alarm raised. Yet beneath the calm fade, a silent effort to reclaim control had begun. The monarchy, steadfast in its traditions, adapted with calculated vigilance, determined to confront the threat without igniting the chaos it sought to prevent. As the scope of the conspiracy expanded, so too did its implications. What Princess Anne had uncovered was no longer a matter of isolated betrayal, but a challenge to the very resilience of the crown in a world defined by relentless connectivity and instantaneous exposure. The palace stood at a crossroads, its strength tested not by spectacle but by secrecy, its future balanced between revelation and restraint. Yet the greatest threat wasn't the conspiracy itself, it was what would happen if the public discovered it before the palace could regain control. By dawn, the palace looked serene. No headlines, no panic. But inside, a silent operation was unfolding. Phones confiscated, accounts frozen, conversations recorded. Princess Anne understood something few outsiders grasp: survival of the crown depends not on spectacle, but on precision. And every move now had to be flawless. The morning carried an illusion of calm, a carefully maintained stillness that concealed the urgency beneath. While the world awoke unaware, the palace machinery moved with disciplined restraint. Implicated staff were quietly suspended under routine pretexts: sudden leaves of absence, administrative reviews, discreet reassignment. No accusations were spoken aloud, no scandal permitted to surface. Yet within the corridors of authority, the message was unmistakable. Vigilance had replaced trust, and discretion had become the crown's most powerful defense. Behind closed doors, coordination with security agencies unfolded with deliberate precision. Communications were examined, digital trails secured, and intelligence channels activated with quiet efficiency. There were no public statements, no dramatic declarations, only measured action guided by necessity. The monarchy, shaped by centuries of survival, adapted once again to a threat that demanded patience rather than spectacle. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. Each decision weighed not merely for its immediate consequence, but for its lasting impact on institutional stability. Simultaneously, a contingency narrative began to take form. Senior advisors worked in hushed consultation, crafting statements that could withstand scrutiny should the truth emerge prematurely. Language was refined with surgical care, transparent enough to reassure, restrained enough to protect. It was a delicate balance, an exercise in strategic ambiguity designed to preserve confidence without revealing the fractures beneath. Princess Anne oversaw these preparations with unwavering clarity, determined that truth, when revealed, would not be distorted by chaos. A private briefing with senior royals followed, and within its solemn deliberations lay both unity and tension. Some urged caution, advocating for measured containment and quiet resolution. Others feared the consequences of concealment, warning that secrecy risked eroding public trust if discovered. Voices rose and fell with restrained intensity, bound by duty yet divided by uncertainty. Through it all, Princess Anne remained resolute. Accountability, she insisted, was not a threat to the crown, but its salvation. To ignore betrayal would invite further corrosion. To confront it would preserve the institution's integrity. Her stance carried weight, but it came at a personal cost. Leadership at the highest level often demanded solitude, and the burden of decision settled heavily upon her. There was no applause, no reassurance, only the quiet understanding that history would judge her choices long after the moment had passed. Isolation, once an accepted companion of duty, now deepened into something more profound: the loneliness of protecting an institution while shielding it from its own vulnerabilities. Beyond palace walls, the first ripples of curiosity began to stir. Journalists noted the abrupt cancellation of the state dinner, their questions cautious but persistent. Commentators speculated on diplomatic tensions, while insiders whispered of unusual activity within the royal household. The silence, once a shield, began to draw attention, and with it came the subtle tremor of impending scrutiny. Rumors moved swiftly through discreet circles, gathering momentum like distant thunder on an otherwise tranquil horizon. A quiet countdown had begun. Each passing hour tightened the tension, each unanswered question edging the truth closer to exposure. Princess Anne understood that silence, however carefully constructed, was not infinite. The monarchy had weathered storms before, but this one threatened to emerge not with spectacle, but with revelation. Precision had preserved calm for now. Yet beneath that fragile serenity, the weight of inevitability pressed forward, relentless and unyielding. But even the most carefully constructed silence cannot hold forever, and the final decision would determine how history remembered that night. In the weeks that followed, subtle changes rippled through palace operations. New protocols, quiet resignations, carefully worded statements. The public never learned the full truth. But insiders knew Princess Anne had drawn a line. She had chosen vigilance over comfort, accountability over convenience. And in doing so, she reminded the world that the monarchy's greatest defense is not secrecy, it is resolve. The transformation unfolded with deliberate restraint, shielded from public spectacle yet unmistakable to those within the institution's inner circle. Internal restructuring moved forward with quiet precision, guided not by scandal but by necessity. Departments were reorganized, responsibilities reassigned, and layers of oversight strengthened under the guise of modernization. To the outside world, it appeared as routine evolution, a monarchy adapting to a changing era. But beneath that veneer lay the unmistakable imprint of a crisis confronted and contained. The Aide at the center of the storm was formally removed with diplomatic subtlety. No accusations echoed through the press, no public disgrace unfolded beneath the glare of headlines. His departure was framed as a personal decision, an exit marked by gratitude and decorum. Yet within the palace, the truth lingered unspoken, its weight acknowledged in silence. The betrayal had been addressed not with spectacle, but with the careful dignity that defined royal survival. Simultaneously, the monarchy fortified itself against future intrusion. Cybersecurity measures were strengthened, communication channels reinforced, and protocols revised with uncompromising rigor. Sensitive information, once guarded by tradition alone, was now shielded by vigilance shaped through experience. It was an evolution born of necessity, a recognition that in an era of relentless connectivity, even the most enduring institutions must adapt or risk vulnerability. These safeguards were not merely technical adjustments. They were declarations of resilience, silent affirmations that the crown would not be caught unprepared again. Amid these changes, Princess Anne's reputation emerged not diminished, but strengthened. Within palace walls and beyond them, she was regarded with renewed respect, the monarchy's silent guardian, unwavering in her devotion to duty. She had acted not for acclaim but for preservation, choosing integrity over convenience when the stakes demanded courage. Her resolve became a quiet legend among those who understood the gravity of what had transpired, a testament to the enduring strength of principled leadership. Yet the aftermath carried a profound emotional cost. Leadership at the summit of tradition is often defined by solitude, and the burden of trust once broken lingered long after the crisis had passed. Betrayal, especially from within, leaves an indelible mark. It reshapes perception, tempers confidence, and reminds even the most steadfast guardians that loyalty, though sacred, is never absolute. For Princess Anne, the triumph of safeguarding the institution was inseparable from the quiet sorrow of confronting its vulnerability. In reflection, the episode became more than a concealed scandal. It was a lesson etched into the monarchy's enduring narrative. Loyalty and betrayal, resilience and fragility, secrecy and truth, these forces had collided within the palace walls, testing the crown's capacity to endure. And endure it did, not through denial, but through resolve. The institution emerged steadier, its foundations reinforced by vigilance and guided by the unwavering commitment of those who stood in its defense. Still, not every thread was neatly tied. Certain questions lingered in shadow, unanswered yet not forgotten. The network that had once threatened the monarchy's integrity was dismantled, but the echoes of its reach whispered faintly in memory. History, after all, rarely concludes with perfect clarity. Some truths remain sealed within archives and recollections, guarded by discretion and time. And so the story closes not with spectacle, but with reflection, a reminder that the most consequential battles are not always fought before the world's gaze. Some are waged in silence, carried by those entrusted with preserving what others take for granted. Some battles are fought in public, others are fought in silence. And somewhere within the palace walls, behind doors still locked, the echoes of that night remain a reminder that even in a kingdom built on tradition, vigilance must never sleep.